Professor, what kind of what kind of exam we are having? Was it multiple choice also?
Probably just some, well, I don't have any multiple choice questions that I have from any sort of database to give you, so I'll probably just prepare some open-ended questions. Hello, Kui, how are you? So I'll probably just some open-ended questions. Excuse me 1 minute. Hello. Hello. I'm in a Zoom meeting. I just texted you. How's everything? No, good. No. I was well, good. Wednesday morning, I give a Zoom class from 9 to 11. So just beginning. Can I call you later? Or you're okay. Will do. All right. It'll be a little bit after 11. I'll call you later in the afternoon. Okay. Everything okay with you? Okay. All right. Okay, shall we? Okay, I think we're going to try to get everything shared from the very beginning. Let's see if this works. Hello, can you see the PowerPoint?
No.
Okay, I'm quite unsure as to why this. There's a red button on PowerPoint that says share. It keeps trying to upload to OneDrive Personal, but I guess that's where it's going to have to go.
Like you did last time.
Well, I didn't really do anything last time. That was the strange thing. Okay, can you still see it? See it yet?
No.
Professor Jury, I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am. Go
I
ahead.
have contacted Your Excellency yesterday about some problems in my assignment. Yeah.
Yes, you're the one. Yes, okay.
Yeah, I have sent Your Excellency the Excel sheet. I thought it would be more user friendly to mention the which assignment to model and the mark and the argument of each question, because I believe that I provided the right answer, so I needed to understand more why while I
Okay.
lost the marks.
Okay, I'll have to deal with that on a personal basis, not really in front of everybody. I don't believe you
Yeah,
sent me your name. That was, I think, part of the situation too. Can you okay, let me just get back to the app.
yeah.
Um,
If your excellency
okay,
need to send you a mail, I have no problem with that for sure.
okay, do that so I can review that. But uh, your question is that the answer that you provided versus what I commented to you, you felt that wasn't the correct response.
I just wanted to understand for sure, yeah, because I believe according to the reference in the or the textbooks, it is right or the answer is correct. So I didn't understand why I lost the marks.
Let me have your, yeah, either send me a text with your name or email me with your name and I'll review it, because I don't think that was part of the issue. Is I didn't know who was responding to me, who was and then has to do with chapter 8 or chapter 7. Okay. All right. Let me do this. I'll get back to you as soon as we finish the class.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. Still cannot see the slides.
No,
I don't really know what it is that is.
you go again to share.
Yeah, the light, the square is red, and then it says underneath share, copy link to other slides, manage access. So I hit the share, then it says share recipients. Uh, I don't know. I mean, the light is lit, is red. So I don't know really what we did that worked last time. What is it asking me to do?
You hit the share and you can see the presenter PowerPoint live like that.
It says share, copy link to this slide, manage access. I've hit all of them and nothing seems to. I have link to copied. I get a little box link to link rep chapter 6 copy. Anyone with link can edit, but I don't want anyone to really edit. Is that
You cannot see PowerPoint live because in for me I can see my PowerPoint live here after I hit the share. Because it depends where did you save it. Or browse my computer, it says here. Browse OneDrive.
okay? I'm looking right now at the PowerPoint slide. I have the first slide up, and I'm hitting the share, which is highlighted. It's in red. Share this document. But it seems to not be allowing you to see it. I don't know what else has to be done.
There's a share content. Can you see the screen? Maybe you try the screen.
What should I do? You're saying?
A screen. Can you see the
Yeah.
screen? Okay, can you hit that screen?
Screen.
Because this is what we are doing when we are doing our presentation.
You see it there now?
No.
Okay, now I've gotten out of the meeting entirely. Okay. But now I've lost it. Let me try to retrieve the
Okay, I'm back to the presentation, and I'm hitting share, and it's red, and I have share underneath it. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. It's asking me to share with who, it's asking to, okay. It's asking me to name the people to share with, but I'm not, how would you do that anyway?
Did you open it in your computer?
Yes,
Can you see now the slide in your computer?
Okay, I'm back to share again, and I don't know where else to go.
Yeah, share, and after you hit that, there's a screen, right? The screen, Windows 2, it says.
No, I don't see that. No, I don't get that.
No, you don't found it in your.
All I see is this. I have
Yeah, you can see the share content. Below
yeah.
is the screen, Windows 2.
Okay, is this on PowerPoint or this in in Team?
In Team.
Okay.
Oh, see,
Okay, do
it's
you see
working.
it? See it
Yes.
now? Okay, all right. I know what I was actually trying to work it through through uh through PowerPoint, but it has to be done through a team. Okay, yikes. All right. All right, ready to go? Okay. All right, we're back. The uh the answers to the multiple choice questions for chapter 8, I actually mistakenly provided you in the chat message, but if necessary, if you didn't see it, let me go through the questions, and then we can proceed to chapter 9. Okay, which of the following is not an operating expense? Would be D. Overall capitalization rate would be A. Net operating income, number 3. Which of the following types would not be appropriate? Would be E. 4 is D. 5, an appraiser estimates the property will produce. The answer is A, 277,778. 6, if a comparable property, the answer is B, 8.33. 7, which of the following statements regarding capitalization would be B? 8, the methodology of appraisals differs from E, point of view. 9 is A, 9.5%. 10 is B, 6.11. Is there anything from this chapter that you would like to begin with before we move on? Is there any questions you may have?
I don't know that you already graded our assignment, and I will check mine also.
Okay, chapter 8 hasn't been graded until actually last night technically was the last time for submitting it. So I'll do that as soon as we finish today. I'll have 8, but those are the answers. I'll have that done as soon as we finish. Any questions about the material of chapter 8? Anything dealing with valuation, the income approach? Once again, the chapter really focuses on 3 ways of estimating the value of a property: the sales, the cost, and the income approach. Okay, those was the main takeaways from chapter 8. Okay, let's move on if there are any questions. Chapter 9 deals with finance. The main topic is mortgages. Interestingly, in Florida, when most people purchase a property, they purchase it with cash. And I guess the reason for that is that Florida is a destination for, in most cases, people that are retiring, that are leaving the colder climates for the sun of Florida. And therefore, what they do is they sell their principal or primary residence someplace else. And so when they purchase a property here in Florida, they have the proceeds from the sale of their property, as well as the fact that if you're buying a home down here and you're 65 or 70 years old, you might be reluctant to enter into a 30-year mortgage, knowing it is likely that you may not live that long. Now, you certainly can sell a property while having a mortgage. Someone buying a property at the senior age may say, well, why should I bother with a mortgage? I'll simply pay our new place with the proceeds from the sale of our current home. So most transactions in Florida tend to be cash transactions. Now, this is not reflective, however, of transactions in most other places. In most other locations, people need to borrow money in order to purchase a property. What they are borrowing is known generally as a mortgage. However, a mortgage consists really of two components. The first component is called the promissory note. The book refers to it as the note, but the official name is a promissory note. And what that promissory note states is the financial terms of what the borrower is borrowing from the lender. This would state the amount of years to repay the loan, and the interest rate and various clauses or conditions when borrowing money. The second component of what I say mortgage is the mortgage itself. So it's kind of a bit funny. People refer to, I'm getting a mortgage, but legally you are getting two parts to a mortgage, the mortgage itself and the promissory note. What the mortgage states is that in the event you do not repay the loan, the lender, usually the bank, has a right to take your property and do what they would like to do, which is in most cases resell it. That the mortgage also states that the house is collateral for the promissory note. So in the event that you do not comply with the promissory note, the lender, the bank, has a right to take from you the property. And that's what the mortgage part of the document deals with. So a mortgage is really two documents in one. One commonly referred to as the mortgage itself, And the second component is referred to as the promissory note. If you would like a mortgage and you go to a lender, usually a bank, the bank would conduct a financial review of your personal information. The bank would ask for information regarding your outstanding debt, how much money you are currently earning, and do a financial analysis of your present situation. It would also do some analysis. It would request information from credit bureaus and any perhaps legal issues that might be outstanding. So it would do a thorough analysis of your financial situation. There are two financial ratios that they would look at. This is not in the text, and I would never ask you anything that isn't in the text. But to make the chapter a little bit more complete, there is a ratio called the housing expense ratio, abbreviated HER. And what it would do is ask for your current housing expenses and then divide that by your total monthly gross income. Okay, that ratio should be 28% or less. Anything above that might disqualify you. There's another ratio called the total obligations ratio, and that would be all that you owe in the numerator divided by your monthly gross income again. That ratio should not exceed 36%.
Professor, are you moving the slide?
Yes. I'm sorry?
Are you moving the slide?
Well, actually, I'm giving you some information that's not in the slides, so that's why I haven't moved it.
Sorry.
Okay, I just wanted you to be familiar with a few. Through the chapter, I'll give you some additional information that the chapter does not cover that is relevant to this discussion. So let me just pass that information on, then we'll move on. Okay, a third statistic that's important to remember is called a loan to value ratio, LTV. And that is the amount of money that you are asking to borrow versus in the denominator, the purchase price. That is called the loan to value ratio. What that produces is usually a ratio that should not exceed more than 80%. In other words, what the bank will give you is usually 80% of the purchase price of a home. So if you want to purchase a property, let's say it's a $300,000 property, the bank will usually give you 80% of that $300,000 property. So 80% of 300 is 240,000. That would mean that the bank gives you 240,000 and you would have to provide the other 60,000. Now, sometimes if the bank really is a bit, I wouldn't say desperate, banks probably don't get desperate unless they're in financial trouble. The banks will work out a situation with you where they will give you a little bit more money. So you may have to put down perhaps 10%, and the bank would put down the rest. So on a $300,000 property, you may have to put down, let's say 10% would be 30, and the bank would put down 270,000. Okay, so these are three ratios not discussed in the text that I'd like you to be familiar with. I will not ask you anything about material not covered in the text. So once again, it's the housing expense ratio, HER. Another one is the total obligation ratio, TOR. And the third is the LTV, loan to value ratio. But the bank will look at all of that before making a determination. Now, the bank does not have to give you the money. Based on your review, their financial review, they may feel that your financial situation is not very strong, and they will deny you the lending. Now, it doesn't mean that because one bank said no, others may also say no. It is possible that one bank may feel it needs the business more than the other, and they may be easier to work with. So if you wish to buy a house, you should do your due diligence, go to a few lenders, and see what their terms may be. Okay, we'll proceed with that as we go along. But I did want to go over some financial analysis that the book doesn't mention that is important. Okay, mortgage debt, nothing much here. A mortgage loan is usually 30 years. When the bank gives you 80% and you put down 20%, that is referred to as a conventional loan. So a conventional mortgage loan is 80-20. You have to put up 20 and the bank puts up the other 80. For many, let's say, young couples buying their first home, or perhaps older people with not really very much income, paying that 20% can be a bit of a challenge. And therefore, they may have to even borrow some of that money to get the mortgage, making it even more difficult to buy a property when you're essentially financing almost 90% of it. Okay, what are the elements of a mortgage? As I mentioned, it really consists of two parts: the mortgage itself and the promissory notes. In casual conversation, people talking about the homes and mortgages among themselves, you never refer to the promissory note because most people don't even know it's there and what it really means. Everybody refers to, their mortgage. But again, the mortgage consists of two components: the mortgage itself and the promissory note. Now, the interest rate that a bank charges you fluctuates almost daily. Now, that may sound a bit strange. Why does the interest rate change daily? But in fact, it does. My real estate office sends out an email every morning with the current interest rate of the day. Now, the variation in interest rates will not be great from one day to the next. For example, one day it could be 7.5% interest, and the next day 7.25, interest. So it'll drop slightly, maybe an eighth of a point, a quarter of a point. It's unusual to see, drastic changes, but it will vary. And banks also will vary their interest rates slightly. So as I just said, if you were in the market to purchase a property, it would be prudent to ask a few banks, to discuss it with a few banks. You go into the bank, there's probably a mortgage area or somebody in charge of mortgages, and just say, I'd like to obtain a mortgage, I want to buy a house, and they will provide you with the details. Now, the interest rate that you would pay on a mortgage is also a function of your credit rating. So that's why I mentioned early the housing expense ratio and the total obligation ratio. The bank would like to know your financial situation very soon in the process. So again, you may have difficulty in one bank, but find you can obtain a mortgage in another bank. So here, I can't speak of all of the countries in which many of you may live in, not knowing where you're living and how it works in different countries. But how it works here is that the bank is free not to agree to a mortgage. So you'll have to pretty much search around, especially if your credit rating is not exceptional. Okay, how can a seller finance a buyer? Well, it's in this chapter. Let's discuss that as we go along. Oops. Two elements of the mortgage, the note and the mortgage. Okay, the mortgage is usually contains a fixed rate. What that means is that whatever the mortgage is, it will not change over the 30-year life of the mortgage. So today, to give you an idea of what mortgage rates are here, at least in Florida, the rate is about, it's I believe 6 7/8, but let's say for argument's sake, it's 7%. That would mean that you would pay 7% annually on the loan for a period of 30 years. In the beginning of a mortgage, most of your payment would be interest. As you get down to about halfway through the mortgage, most of that payment is principal, which is the amount that you have borrowed. The total amount paid each month doesn't change, but the composition of the two components of a mortgage payment, the principal that you borrowed, the amount that you borrowed, and the interest rate you're paying on that will not change, but the ratio will change. You'll pay more interest in the beginning and less principal. And about halfway through, you'll begin paying more principal and less interest because you're paying interest on the amount of money that's still owed. Years ago, banks introduced a new feature of mortgage rates, and that is the adjustable rate. What they said is for a fixed period, usually of 5 years, they will charge you less than the current interest rate. So let's say today's current interest rate is 7%. A bank may offer you an adjustable rate, let's say, of 4%. Now, why would they do that? Why would they charge you less than what the actual mortgage rate is today? Does anyone have an idea? Okay. Well, the reason for it is to stimulate demand, is to stimulate business. Okay. The only thing is that that rate is only for a limited period of time, and then the bank will readjust it. An adjustable rate mortgage, this slide here is a little bit misleading because when it says adjustable rate, it isn't referring to the adjustable rate mortgage. It's referring to how does the bank determine the interest rate paid, the interest rate it will charge on a mortgage. And that is based on certain U.S. government financial this financial rates, I guess you would call it. Today, the banks use what is called the Secured Overnight Financing Rate, SOFR. It used to use the LIBOR, which you see over here on this chart. But due to fluctuations in that, they've now moved over to a different rate. Now, what happens is each evening, the US government, working with foreign banks, everything is somewhat interconnected, especially the financial center in London, comes up with an interest rate. That interest rate serves as the basis for mortgage rates in this country for the following day. It's very interesting how they do this. Only a financial bank or a banker who works in the area would provide you with more information. But if you were to say, why does the rate change, the interest rate? If I asked the bank today for a mortgage loan and they told me 7%, and I came back tomorrow, that interest rate might be 6 7/8. Why would it change? Well, it changes because the banks working together arrive at different statistics, but one of them, the secured overnight financing rate, would be the rate today that serves as the basis for determining the mortgage rate. Okay, we will get to an adjustable rate mortgage in a bit, but what I was referring to is not what this means over here. This is a bit misleading. Okay, this chart reflects, as I was saying just seconds ago, in year one, notice in black that most of the payment tends to be interest. Black is interest. And a small percentage, 20% of the payment, would go toward principal. As the years progress, notice that the amount of interest you would pay would decline because you are essentially repaying most of the loan. So when you get to the very end, you have very little principal remaining, and therefore your interest payment would be much lower.
Why, Professor? Why the principal will not just straight? It should not be like this.
Well, you're paying little by little the amount you owe to the bank. So little by little, that let's go back to the $300,000 home conventional mortgage. So the bank puts up 80% and you put down 20. So 20% of 300,000 was 60,000, right? 20 times 3 is 60. So you owe $240,000 in principal. As the years progress, that 240,000 will go down, and therefore what is remaining at the end is mostly your principal, and the interest of what we said is 8%, 6%, whatever that is, of the remaining principal is much less. You see, you'd be paying, let's say, 8% of 240,000 each year. Okay, 88% interest. Let's say today 7% interest times 200. Where's my phone? 8%. 8%. Okay, 8% interest on 240,000. Okay, let's figure this out very quickly. We can do that. Okay, you had a $240,000 debt times 0.07 is you would be paying $16,800 in your first year. Divide that by 12, and that would be the amount of money going toward interest in the first year.
Yes, but some they suggest that you can pay more. How that it happened? Because for example, if my monthly payment is 2,000, they say that if you have enough money, you can pay 3,000, and how it will affect this.
Yes, some banks, when you sign your mortgage, you sign your mortgage documents, the mortgage paperwork. Some banks will allow you to pay more than the monthly payment. In this way, you reduce the amount of years that of the outstanding loans, usually 30 years. So if you were to pay, sometimes some of the banks would allow you to pay an extra payment a year. So you could pay 13 payments instead of 12 payments. By doing that, you're reducing, again, the amount of payments. So think of it, let's say you have 30 years times 12 payments. So you have 360 payments over the period of 30 years. So if you pay an extra one a month, and that would be minus 30 years, 30 payments, so you'd have 330 payments. So yes, if you pay a little bit faster, it would reduce the principal sooner, and that would you'd be paying less in interest.
Okay.
Okay, but that's if the bank allows it. Sometimes it may not. It may not want to do that. But see, the thing is that what banks often do is they'll give you, let's say, the example we're working with, $300,000 home. It's putting up 80%. So the bank is putting up $240,000. The bank cannot afford to give out loans and then wait patiently for 30 years to have that money repaid to them. The bank would run out of money. So what banks do is they sell your mortgage to another institution. What's called selling the mortgage in the secondary market. So another institution comes along and buys your mortgage and repays the bank that money, and of course charges a fee to the bank for doing so. But that allows the bank to then issue additional mortgages, because especially small banks in small communities could not give out, let's say, 200, 300,000, even more in mortgages, and then wait 30 years to get their money back. They wouldn't have enough money to do so. You see, so that's why they will resell the mortgage. So it's in their interest to really get the money back faster should they be holding on to your mortgage. But in most cases, it really doesn't matter because they're selling it anyway. So the secondary bank that's buying the mortgage, or investors, sometimes investors do this as well. What the bank does is it takes a group of mortgages and puts them together into a package, an investment vehicle. And some people then will buy that package for a certain amount as a bond, perhaps of $1,000 or $5,000. People who buy mortgages like this, investors, just regular people, obviously wealthy people, consider this to be a very stable investment. Because people who buy properties usually keep them. Very few of them go into bankruptcy. Even in the very difficult years that we experienced here in the States, maybe from 2008, 9, and 10, those difficult years, yes, there were properties that went into foreclosure, but not really that many. Most people that buy a home are in a position to pay it out. And if they can't, they'll sell it. So you don't really see many cases of foreclosure, even though, of course, it is possible. Okay, where are we? Over here. Okay, this is what I was just saying. The traditional common law, based on English common law, no right of prepayment unless explicitly stated. The bank would have to have that in writing, uh, either to say yes, you can do it, or no, you can't. So generally speaking, there isn't a right to prepayment, but very often the bank would simply say, okay, if you could pay off faster, you know, the bank doesn't want to lose you as a client, because people who often have mortgages with the bank, will have credit cards with the bank, may have an automobile loan with the bank, may have other things going with the bank. So if you were to say, I like to begin paying down my mortgage, the bank is likely to say, okay, well, let's do that. I don't want to get you angry. I want to keep you as a client. I don't want to say no to you and then have you take your business someplace else. So um, it usually will allow it to happen. Loans with right of prepayment, all conforming FHA, these are government loans, allow you to repay without question, and then a home credit equity line. Um, Loans with restricted right that don't just automatically allow you to do it would be subprime. If they're giving you a discount on the interest rate, which usually they don't do. Jumbo home loans refers to home loans of very expensive properties, like million, 2 million or more. If someone wants to buy a $5 million property, and needs a mortgage, that mortgage is called a jumbo because of the size of the mortgage. Because of the size of the mortgage, as the text is saying, the banks do not usually allow you to prepay, because the higher the mortgage, the more interest the bank is making. The bank would not like you to terminate that mortgage sooner, and therefore they would not collect the interest. Maybe some loans, the jumbo loans, they cannot sell to other investors, maybe because the investor would be fearful that a loan of $5 million could go into bankruptcy, and then they'll never get their money back, or get very limited money back. These are some of the, we saw this word before, I believe, defeasance last week. Just trying to recall. Let me see, defeasance, let me see. Oh yeah, that's when someone passes away. Okay, a provision of mortgage that specifies in order to avoid default and therefore defeat the mortgage. Okay, well, I thought we had seen that before. I think I'm confusing that with another one, but not a big deal. All right. In any event, if you want to pay back sooner and the bank is not too happy with it, they could charge you a penalty. I would not ask you the nature of the penalty that the bank would charge if you wanted to finish earlier. That's really a minor term. A non-recourse loan, there's no personal liability, demand clause, right of lender to require immediate. Okay, let me just put this in a perspective for you. Okay, let me just show you where we are. Okay. Okay. Let me. Okay, I just want to put this sort of in perspective, because Okay, beginning with, okay, if you have your text, beginning with let me just give you a little, again, I was just trying to give you some context. The mortgage document itself would contain certain clauses. The right of repayment is one of the clauses, whether it allows you or does not allow you to do so. I'm really beginning on page 224 of the text. Okay, mortgage. These are clauses again that are related to the mortgage document itself. The promissory note explains the amount of money that's borrowed, the term that it is being borrowed, usually 30 years, and the interest rate you would have to pay. Okay. The mortgage note contains the various clauses. Okay. The exculpatory clause is one of them. It begins with that. There are a number of them. So let's begin defining some of them so we have an idea what that means. When you have a mortgage with a bank, you have a liability with the bank to pay that money back over a 30-year period. Okay, so the bank is saying you have a obligation to pay me back over 30 years this amount of money. When you have made payment and you have finished your mortgage, it's rare that someone really holds it to 30 years. Many people sell, many people, again, just can't do it. With age, they may sell their property or move on. The moment that that loan has been repaid, then the bank issues what's called an exculpatory clause, and that is saying you have met everything you needed to do. You have paid me off completely, so you have no personal liability left in our relationship. Okay, that's what that means. I'm not too happy with the way the text just jumps right into the note or the terms. Okay. It says in note, so this also could be part of the promissory note, but again, it is two documents together. So once again, once you agree with the terms and everything is in order, there are a number of clauses associated with the mortgage. Okay, one of them is the exculpatory clause, and that is you have a obligation, a legal obligation, financial obligation to pay me for 30 years this amount. Remember, in the mortgage, the amount of money paid each month does not change. The ratio between the principal and the interest rate will change, but not the total amount. The total amount remains the same. Once you have completed the 30 years, once that loan has been paid off, the bank issues an exculpatory clause saying, we're done, you have no personal liability with us. That's what this means. Taken just like this, it's really taken out of context. The demand clause is another clause that says that the bank, if it wishes, can require immediate payment. The demand clause is likely if you cannot pay back the loan and are in default for, let's say, a few months. If you haven't paid your mortgage payment in a few months, the bank may issue a demand clause, and that's saying, well, I can't allow this to continue indefinitely. So I'd like you to pay everything that you owe or we're done. And of course, the person who has not made payments cannot make that payment. So he or she will fail to reach that demand clause. And the next step for the bank is likely to be foreclosure. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. Let me go over some other terms that are part of the mortgage process. Okay, let me go. Okay, description of the property, important mortgage clauses. Okay, this is, I was looking for that one. You remember we talked about surveys last week, things like that, in discussing how an appraiser would determine the value of a property. And we did say that it's important to have a survey or have an exact description of the dimensions of the property. For purposes of the mortgage, they would have to know, the bank would have to know the exact dimensions of that property. So this is why the survey is so important, because it is part of the description of the mortgage. The mortgage would also insist that you have insurance in the event that you buy a house and some accident occurs, a fire. If you live in the South, in the possibility of hurricanes and the house is destroyed, who would pay to repair the house? Well, nobody, if they didn't have any insurance. So the bank insists that you get insurance and would not allow you, in fact, to move into the house until the insurance certificate is given to the bank. A personal friend of mine last year sold his house, but could not close, could not sign the final documents. The new buyer could not sign the final documents, and my friend could not get the proceeds from the sale of the house because the buyer could not obtain insurance. He could not find an insurance company that was willing to insure the house, because going back a year, it was only maybe a year before that we had a major hurricane, and there was quite a bit of damage to that area where my friend lives. Here in Florida, the state government has its own insurance agency, such that if you cannot obtain insurance through a private lender, State Farm Insurance, Nationwide Insurance, Allstate Insurance, if any of the major insurance companies would not lend you money, the state will step in and do it for you, because the state knows if a person cannot get insurance, you cannot buy or sell a property. And that would be a complete halt to all financing of properties. Now, if you paid cash for a property, you don't need insurance. But of course, if something happened, you would have to pay out of your own pocket the cost of any repairs. But if you were financing the property, the bank would not say, okay, if you don't want insurance, don't do it, and then have the house suffer major damage because of a hurricane, and then have the owner say, oh, I can't afford to repair this, so Mr. Bank, here is your keys back, and good luck. And that actually has happened. Okay, escrow clause means that most mortgage companies, the banks as well, will collect a little bit extra from you just in case. So if your monthly payment, let's say, is $1,000, the bank may collect $1,100. And they call that escrow. Escrow is another word for like extra. And many mortgage companies will actually do you the favor of paying any taxes out of that money. Okay, will you excuse me 1 minute so I can get a little bit more water? I shall be right back.
Maybe time to break.
Okay, back in business. All right. Okay, so the bank would be nice enough, or whoever is managing the payments for you, to pay your taxes in when they come due. So they pay that out of the escrow money, and whatever extra fees and things that might you may have to pay, the bank, instead of asking you to send me some money, already has the money there. Acceleration clause is in the event that the bank feels you are not going to pay, you're not paying, you've defaulted a few months, and say, well, give me all the money, which you cannot do, and that forces you to accept default as an option. Due on sale clause is saying that once you sell a property, if you sell a property with a mortgage, the banks issue a due on sale clause, which means that we will terminate your mortgage and finish it. It is rare, but it does happen that a bank will allow the new buyer to assume the original mortgage. Now, that would happen if, let's say, a buyer buys a house and the interest rate at that time is very attractive, let's say 4% interest rate. The owner has to sell, the new buyer comes along. At that time, the interest rates may be, let's say, 8%, meaning that the monthly payment would be much higher. So the new buyer might be able to work out a deal with the bank in which the bank will allow the new buyer to assume the original mortgage. The banks really don't like to do that. Why? Because they prefer issuing a new mortgage and collecting more in interest. But sometimes it does happen. Okay, hazardous substances clause is something that says in the mortgage, you promise that you will not store any hazardous substances in the home, such that the home will not explode or the home will not start a fire in there because of hazardous substances and chemicals. Just yesterday in the news, a home in, I think, Maryland, the police went for some reason and the home exploded. It wasn't because of a bomb, I believe. It said it had something to do with simply what was stored there. Okay. And preservation and maintenance clause, that the bank is saying, you promise me that you will take care of this house, and it will not be any problem at all. Okay, the mortgage versus deed of trust. Let me just clarify something also. When you have a mortgage, when you buy a home and you get your mortgage and everything's okay, you are paying off the mortgage. Within about a month or 2 months of buying a home, you will receive a deed. A deed is a certificate that says you own this property. Okay. Once again, the mortgage is a document that says, in case you do not pay, we can take your home as collateral. It doesn't really say that this is your home. You're simply the borrower. The promissory note, the other component of the mortgage, simply states the financial terms. The only evidence you have that the home is just really your home is a certificate called a deed. And that deed will arrive by mail about a month to 2 months after you purchase a home. Now, there is something called a deed of trust, as you're seeing here. A deed of trust serves as an alternative to a mortgage. You ask for a mortgage, but the mortgage, as you could see in the bottom part of this diagram, essentially says, okay, well, we don't want to say that you are, yes, the owner of the house. So we pass the deed to a trustee. And that trustee serves as the manager of the home. So in some states, they will issue a mortgage, and in some states, they will issue a deed of trust. The deed of trust is saying, really, like I'm paying for it, but really, like I'm not the owner. The owner is really the trustee. And in the event the person passes away or the person wants to sell, they inform the trustee, and the trustee conducts the financial transaction. In most places, especially even in Florida, the mortgage loan, the top part of the diagram, is what occurs here. Let me mention one other document that's used in mortgages, its importance. It's called an estoppel certificate, ESTOPPEL, estoppel certificate. A buyer wants to sell his home, has a contract to sell, and turns to a title company or a lawyer who's licensed to conduct the transaction. So the title company determines all of the fees, how long you've been paying, so on and so forth. The title company or the lawyer then requests of the bank, please give me the up-to-date information on this loan. In the financial document that the seller provided, he says he owes 10 more years of payments, but I want to be sure. So the title company or the lawyer will request what is officially called an estoppel certificate. That estoppel certificate will be sent to the bank that has the mortgage or whoever is administrating the mortgage, and says, we are the bank, Mr. So-and-so, who is your client, is selling the property. We would like to know exactly how much money he owes to you. And those figures then will be put into the closing documents. If the title company does not receive the estoppel certificate back, the transaction just remains where it is, stuck. simply because the title company needs to know exactly how much money the borrower, the person who is selling the property, owes to the bank. So at the date of closing, the numbers such as the interest that's owed, the property taxes that are owed, what all fees that the seller owes has been paid. We discussed earlier in the course the concept of a lien, L-I-E-N, which is money that the owner owes in the form of taxes and fees to the community, as well as any major repairs that were done to the home. If the owner needed a new roof and was paying off, got a loan to pay off the cost of repairing the roof, well, whoever loaned the owner the money, as soon as he gave him a check for the money, would issue a lien so that in the event the owner sold the house, that the bank would get their money back for extending credit to repair the roof. That's called a lien. Remember, we also said that interestingly, the liens do not go with the person. They go with the house. Therefore, if you were to buy a home, you should always do it through, and I say this selfishly as a realtor, you'd always do it through a realtor who will then connect you to a title company so that the title company can check to be sure there are no outstanding liens on that property. Because if the seller walks away and the new buyer, unknown to him, has to pay $100 a month to repair the roof, then the roof company or the lender comes to him and says, you owe me $100 for the month of November. And the new buyer says, I don't know anything about this. And they say, well, you have a lien on this property for $100 a month for the reparations for the repair of the roof. But the borrower never knew it because the borrower never dealt with the title company who did the research. The buyer simply dealt directly with the seller, paid the seller the money. Seller said, thank you, I got my money, and just walked away. Okay. What happens if things go wrong? What does it mean things go wrong? That the buyer simply cannot make any mortgage payments. This could happen if a buyer loses her job. It happened quite recently with the COVID problem. We have a mortgage here. Now, I don't go into an office to work. I don't really have to. But because most people were not buying homes at that time, because we were all hesitant about going out and encountering other people, many of the banks and mortgage companies said, excuse me, we will allow you not to pay for a few months. If I remember, I don't think we paid for maybe 3 or 4 months, but the bank also said there will not be any legal fees or late payments or penalties, but we understand that most people are in seclusion, in lockdown, and therefore cannot be working. However, as soon as that was lifted, as soon as the bank said, okay, can't wait any longer, then in our case, we simply paid them the 3 months that we owed. We had the money aside. We weren't about to go out and spend it because you couldn't spend it on anything. You couldn't go anywhere. So we simply, once they said, okay, we were giving you 3 months to figure out a way to make your mortgage payment. Now we're saying we need you to make a payment. So we simply gave them the money and we were okay with them. Okay, so each bank is a bit different. They may wait 3 months, they may wait 4 months. Sometimes you read stories of people, let's say 6 months, the bank doesn't do anything. Why? It's up to the bank. The banks do not want you to give them the keys to the bank, to your home, and the bank then has a property and has to pay the taxes and has to pay maintenance and things like that. Bank doesn't want to take back your property, but the bank may feel that it has no obligation. Okay, let's continue on this. Okay, what can the bank do in the event that a person goes to the bank and says, I'm really sorry, I cannot make any payment. I lost my job. I found out that I have a serious disease and I have to move someplace else. I cannot make payment. What can a bank do? Well, what they're saying here is, well, we'll give you some sort of counseling or whatever, but if a person has lost a job or has suffered some sort of major catastrophe, there's really not much talking can achieve. The bank can simply try to help you sell the property and try to recuperate the proceeds of the sale. There's something called a short sale that you will see in declining markets. If you recall the period, let's say 12, 13 years ago, 2009, 10, that area, when property values declined considerably. Let me give you an example. A person buys a home at $300,000, bank puts up 80%, so you owe the bank $240,000. Within a year or two, the economy goes really bad. And you owe the bank maybe $230,000. You've paid the bank back 10 years, $10,000. But you wake up and you find out that your home is now worth or selling for $150,000. Okay, let's go through this again. You bought a home for $300,000. You owe the bank originally $240,000. You paid off in a few years $210,000, so you owe them $230,000. But your neighbor sold the exact house at this time, in a period of economic decline, sold his house for $150,000. So what does that say to you? It says to you that I owe the bank $230,000, but this house, this asset, is worth $150,000. You say, my God, my goodness, I owe the bank more money than my home is worth. That's a very difficult position to be in. What a short sale is the individual, the homeowner, goes to the bank and says, I owe you $230,000. I cannot pay, and it is worth $150,000. If I can sell it for $150,000, will you accept that and close my mortgage? Now, if you have a moment to do the math, the bank's going to get 150 and loaned you 230. So the bank would lose $80,000 on that transaction. Why would the bank do it? And they do it. They do it because they don't want to have your home back. They don't want, if a person walks away from a home, that home will often fall into disrepair. The bank doesn't want to have in their possession dozens of homes in disrepair sitting there in a down market. They would hope that if you can sell it to somebody else, it is worth it for us to accept an $80,000 loss than to lose the full 230,000 or close to it if that house is abandoned, maybe broken into and damaged. I saw during that period of time, there was some buyers, people wanted to take advantage of very, very low prices, even foreclosures. I showed some properties that had been abandoned and we walked into them, and you can't imagine the condition of those homes. The appliances were gone, refrigerator, washing machine, dryer, things like that were removed. I mean, the owner had gone, so someone broke into the house, opened the lock, walked in, took everything. Some of the wiring was taken away too because it's copper wiring, and that copper has a value. Plus, if you are a handyman or a contractor or something, well, you have free copper that you could use in some other work. You wouldn't really believe the condition of some of these homes in which the owners walked away, foreclosed, bank foreclosed, but the property was simply left abandoned. The bank could not deal with the amount of foreclosures that were occurring. So would they have accepted a small loss, let's say of $50,000, $80,000, so that that home now passes to somebody else? Yes, the bank would have done that. Where'd that come from? Okay. In the event of foreclosure, and it's sold, let's say, on the open market, then those people that have liens would in part be repaid. Remember, we talked about liens, that who gets paid first? The local property taxes get first. The local county says we want our money first. Then would come, let's say, any federal taxes. Then would come what's owed to the bank. Sometimes if you have liens and the person goes into foreclosure, you may not get anything. What is foreclosure? Foreclosure is a legal processing which ends all claims of ownership, and the liens are actually still there, but again, anyone who has placed a lien on your home will not get paid once the house has been foreclosed. And the reason the lien does not go to the new buyer is because it's the process of foreclosure is a legal process which ends all of the liens. Where are we? Okay, the lien priority, meaning who gets paid first? If the bank goes in, if the home goes into foreclosure, let's say after the taxes have been paid, if there's a balance on the first mortgage of 100,000 and there's a second mortgage of 20,000, but the first mortgage, but the foreclosure proceeds are 100,000, Well, the bank that has the first mortgage and the other bank who has the second, they don't say, well, let's work this out. The first bank says, listen, the seller owes me 100,000, so I'm taking the entire sale from the proceeds of the home. So the uh, um, the one has the first gets all of it, and the second bank gets nothing. Whoever has liens after the second mortgage loan in terms of priority will get nothing, because the only amount that the bank could recuperate was $100,000. It's a tough business, banking. Okay, here the proceeds are 100,000, but the amount of money that's owed is 120. So there's a deficiency of 20,000. Yes, you could try to sue for that. And try to get your money, but again, the seller is bankrupt, which means that the seller really has nothing there. I remember representing a client that bought a home that had recently gone into foreclosure, and as allowed by the contract, the prospective buyer can do a inspection, and the inspector found that there was a problem with the air conditioner. You cannot live in Florida, in South Florida, without an air conditioning system. The air conditioning estimate was about $700 to repair it. The seller said, I'm sorry, boys, I can't pay the money. I can't, I'm giving it to the bank. I don't have $700, or I don't want to give $700. It's your problem. The buyer who I represented said, oops, I'm not going to pay for it. He may actually have done it in the event that we said, okay, the deal's off, because the house was just in foreclosure and everything was just fine, no damages, nothing like that. In the end, the realtor representing the seller and myself representing the buyer divided the outstanding costs of $700, so $350 each came out of our commission. Sometimes that happens. You don't want to pay something out of your own commission. You've worked hard to earn that. That was a very difficult deal, dealing with a bank in a foreclosed property, trying to get information from the seller and having to deal with the work that needed to be done. But that's what we decided to do. So it is a judicial foreclosure. It goes through the court system. It isn't something that the bank can do on its own. The bank has to request that the court issues the foreclosure. And the reason for that is because the mortgage payment, these are legal documents. These are contracts. And you can't change them without going to a lawyer. Another, I don't know, I'm not quite sure we addressed this yet. It may come up in later chapters. But what happens if a couple, an elderly couple, own the house, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Both of them have their names on the deed. The deed says this house, 1234 Pineapple Lane, is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Mr. Smith passes away. Mrs. Smith says, I don't wish to live here alone. I'm going to move in with my daughters. I must sell the house. That house cannot be sold at that moment. Why is that? Because Mr. Smith's name appears on the deed, as well as Mrs. Smith. So what happens is that the realtors advise Mrs. Smith to contact a lawyer that is knowledgeable in the area called probate law, Probate, probate law. What that lawyer will do is file a permission with a probate judge and say, Judge, these are the documents showing that Mr. Smith passed away. This is his death certificate. The sole owner at this moment is his wife, Mrs. Smith. And we would like the deed changed from Mr. and Mrs. Smith to Mrs. Smith. The probate judge, looking at the documents and seeing that the documents are in order, will allow that the deed be transferred to the name of Mrs. Smith only. So if Mrs. Smith realtor finds a buyer and she has to sign the sales contract, Mrs. Smith is allowed to do it. So real estate here in the States is anything to do with contractual obligations governed by the legal system. Okay, what happens if the lender, the bank, runs into financial trouble? The laws regarding businesses are referred to as bankruptcy. There are two sections of bankruptcy that apply to businesses. One is called Section 7, Chapter 7 of the bankruptcy law. This is the most severe of the sections. Should point out that referred to as chapters, I call them sections. Chapter 7 is that the court appoints a liquidator, and the liquidator simply sells off the assets of the business. Now, bankruptcy applies to banks, applies to anybody. A restaurant could go into foreclosure. The owner of a restaurant cannot pay his or her rent and declares bankruptcy. Okay, the bank has to deal with that because now they have title to the facility, to the area, to the store, to the restaurant, the property. And working with a lawyer, you will then file for either Chapter 7, which means that everything is sold. There's no way of escaping bankruptcy. If the person that's gone into bankruptcy is still earning money or can demonstrate that they have some sort of project that will provide income, but sometime in the future, with a high degree of certainty, then the bankruptcy court will allow for Chapter 11. Chapter 11 will say something like, okay, all of the creditors, you will not get paid for 6 months until the bankrupt person is able to receive the money that's supposed to come to him. So Chapter 11 is really, like the slide says, working out. The court will allow the person in bankrupt to reach an agreement with the creditors. So the creditors will not do anything further, but simply wait until the bankrupt person is able to work himself out of the situation. So 7 is the more severe chapter. Everything goes. We sell it, maybe in a auction. We just put an article in newspaper. Restaurant equipment for sale, but you must pick it up and take it with you. Okay, Chapter 11 would say, okay, so and so, because it has to be printed in the newspaper, by the way. The public has to know about it. That the person is declaring bankruptcy under Chapter 11, and all creditors are to cease writing letters, calling the person in bankruptcy for a period of time. We are working out a solution to the problem. So the court is protecting the business owner. The lender could be a bank, could be a restaurant, could be a building, could be a commercial building, could be anything. Allowing the situation to be worked out because the court believes that the person in bankruptcy will be receiving funds in the near future and will be able to pay back the debt. Okay, Chapter 7 and Chapter 11 refer to businesses. Chapter 13 applies to you and I, to individuals, to households. Chapter 13 is similar to 11 in that if you say, listen, Judge, I just had a bad time. I had COVID. I lost my job. I was sick. I wasn't able to work for 6 months. I have no income, but I'm now over the COVID, and I do have a new job that will pay me this amount of money, and I will be able to pay back those people that I owe. I just need a little more time. And that's the case, the judge is very likely to work out an understanding between the creditors and the person in bankruptcy, filing for bankruptcy, to give him some relief. The thing with bankruptcy, a lot of people think it's, well, I owe a lot of money. I bought a new car, I bought a new house, I bought this, I bought that. Yes, I spent a little too much money, but I just declare bankruptcy. The court will take my possessions, give them to whoever I owe, and then I start anew all over again tomorrow. Well, it's not really that easy because a lot of this stuff will remain in your personal record. In your personal record for quite some time. It just won't go away. Now, if you ever have filed for bankruptcy and then want to buy a new home, would a bank give you a mortgage if you have demonstrated in the past you just walked away? Would you be able to buy a new car? So some people have the impression that, well, I just file bankruptcy, I just walk away, forget all of my legal problems, and that's it. Well, that's it, but don't believe that you can borrow money again from anybody for I don't know how many years. I think it's 7 years, 7 or 10 years. You'll have to be working, and if you want a car, you'll have to maybe buy a used car. Okay, but no one's going to lend you money. So Don't think it's an easy out from a very difficult situation. The word, again, assumption is, remember we mentioned that, let's say you own a home and you have a very low mortgage, you bought the home in a very good time to buy property, 4% interest. New buyer comes along, the interest rates at that time is 8%. You say, can I have your mortgage rather than getting another one at 8%? Well, it's not for you to say yes or no. It's for your bank to say yes or no. If the bank agrees, that is called assuming a mortgage for the buyer. Now, interestingly, if the bank allows the new buyer to assume the mortgage of the seller, should the new buyer be unable to pay at some time, the original seller is the one who is also liable for the loan. In other words, if the bank allows the seller to pass the mortgage to the new buyer, so the new buyer assumes the payments for the mortgage. In the event the new buyer cannot make payment, the original seller does not escape liability. The bank will go to the seller and say, well, you sold it to this guy. We agreed to give him the mortgage, but he's not paying, so I'm afraid we're coming after you. And that's what this is all about. Okay, debt without a mortgage, yes. Can you buy a home on just cash? Yes. As I said in my opening, people here in Florida do it all the time. The buyers, again, in many areas of Florida are older people who came to retire to Florida and maybe have had homes up north, have sold those homes, so they come to Florida with cash. They don't want to get involved in a mortgage. They'd rather simply buy on cash, have no mortgage payment, just have to deal with the fees that are charged down here. Are there any laws regarding the mortgages and the borrowing of money and all of that? The answer is yes. All of the laws that have been passed recently have attempted to correct some of the deficiencies or errors, let's say, that people involved in financial transactions have encountered over the years. The Truth in Lending Act, TILA, RESPA, we refer to it as RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, created laws to protect buyers from unscrupulous bankers and mortgage companies. For example, a person gets a loan to buy a house, a property, and then finds out that maybe there was a better deal someplace else. Maybe I could have gotten a mortgage at a lower price someplace else. Well, the Truth in Lending allows that person 3 days to cancel the loan completely. Okay, this does not apply to purchasing or constructing a principal residence or anything for business purposes or for refinancing a home. In other words, this will only apply if you have asked for a loan, let's say, to repair your home. Or if you wish to purchase a second home. You want to purchase a second home, you then find that maybe something was the matter with the home. You may have been able to get a better deal someplace else. You found out that that second home will also, in that area, they'll build an amusement park. And you say something like, you know, I don't want to be that close to an amusement park that will bring a lot of people in and the community will get noisy, messy, and whatever. So I have 3 days after receiving the loan to simply say I'm no longer interested, and you will not be able to, you will not be subjected to any penalties. Okay, let me repeat that so to avoid any confusion. You have 3 days to rescind, 3 days to walk away from a loan, as long as it is not for the purchase or constructing of your principal home, not for a business purpose, and not to refinance a home. In other words, if you want to buy a second home, or if you want to buy a third home, you want to make repairs on your roof or your floor, that's okay. In 3 days, you can walk away and you don't have a problem. Okay, the second one, the RESPA, is very important because as part of RESPA, you will see a closing statement. A closing statement is what the title company will give you that shows you all of the fees you will have to pay when purchasing a property, and all of the fees you will have to pay if you are selling the property. The RESPA also allows you, or insists, is a better word, that the company preparing the financial documents explaining everything gives it to you at least 3 days before you come into the office to make your final payment and sign all of the documents you need to transfer the ownership of the home from the seller to the buyer. Okay, try to imagine what it's like. You're buying a property or you're selling a property. The title company is collecting information from both the buyer and the seller. What information is the uh, title company getting from the seller? Well, it wants to know if you have a mortgage and who has your mortgage. Now, we said an estoppel statement is a request from the title company to the bank that has your mortgage to say, how much does Jerry owe on his mortgage? And will the bank terminate the mortgage? So give me the exact numbers. The title company will also ask, how much do you pay in fees and any debt that you have. It will also discover, whether you say admit it or not, if there's any liens on that property. To the buyer, the title company is going to say, how are you going to finance this property? You're going to finance it through a mortgage. Which mortgage company are you working with? And get all of the documents from the mortgage company, such that on the day of closing, the buyer has provided the title company with the total amount of money that he or she has to pay and prepares a check to deliver to the seller for the money that the seller is obligated to receive for the sale of the property. That particular document that outlines all of the fees and whatever should be in the hands of the buyer at least 3 days before closing. Now, the seller also gets a copy, but the seller is really not the one who's paying anything. The seller is going to be paid, but the seller is entitled to see that document to look to see if there's any mistakes. I have found on a few occasions mistakes that were made, a failure to include some information. For example, when a buyer buys a property, they usually make what's called a goodwill payment to get the process going. Usually that could be $1,000, $5,000, depending on the sale of the property, maybe even more. Okay, that amount of money which is given to the title company should be included in the amount of money that the seller will receive. If the buyer is getting $250,000 from the bank, but also paid $10,000 previously, well, then they owe $240,000 from the bank because they've already paid $10,000 of the $250,000 purchase. Okay. The two areas that I would like you to remember moving forward would be the truth in lending, because it says that a borrower has 3 days to walk away, as well as the RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Act, meaning that the financial documents have to be in the hands of the buyer and seller 3 days. Most importantly, the buyer, because the buyer has to know exactly how much money they have to bring to the table. Those two are most important. Okay, the Equal Opportunity Act doesn't really have anything to do with the financial aspects of the transaction, but does insist that a person cannot withhold the sale of a property, cannot prevent the sale of a property because of the buyer's race, color, religion, so on. These are areas in which discrimination can occur, and the law specifically prevents people, race, color, all of these things, to prevent somebody from purchasing a property. Also, truth in lending says that all of the information regarding the terms of the transaction, how much you have to pay, how much you will pay in interest, and all that has to be presented to the buyer as well. Here's a 3-day closing cost document. It's the loan disclosure part of the document. All of these were passed eventually by Congress, the U.S. Congress, to correct errors that were done, people taking advantage of the system. Imagine buying a home and then being presented with the amount of money you have to pay the day before, and if you needed to get additional money or something was a problem, not being able to cancel. If a buyer cannot make payment by the date of closing, technically the buyer is in default. The seller can say, if I don't get my money on December 6th by 5 o'clock to close a business, there's no deal. And I keep the original payment made by the buyer. Now, in practice, sometimes there are reasons that there may be a delay, and the seller may be asked to extend the delay, the closing, for a few days. If the relationship between the buyer and the seller and their agents has been cordial and respectful, and the buyer's agent says to the seller's agent, the bank said that the loan officer was out today and they're going to send the check over tomorrow. The loan officer got sick, has COVID, had to leave the office, but the check will be ready tomorrow. Well, most likely the seller will say, okay, we'll extend it one day. So therefore, if something is mishandled, technically, the seller can walk away from the deal if the closing doesn't occur as scheduled. Okay, consumer financial protection. I think that'll about do it for us. Okay, are there any questions before we leave today? I do owe somebody an explanation of a exam question, a test question, so please email me or send me a chat so I know who I'm talking to, and I'll have that resolved today. Next week, it should already been
Oh,
be
no.
on Moodle. What?
Oh, my mic is on. Did I disturb you a while ago while you are talking?
Yes, I'm talking. Okay. Next week, today is the 6th. Next week on the 13th, we'll pick up a little bit of the pace, chapters 10 and 11. That information is there in Moodle with some assignments. I think I gave you 2 questions this time. So sometime between the 20th and maybe the 27th, is it preferred from the class, considering we are getting into the Christmas holiday season, if I give you an assignment on the 20th to do in a week or the 27th in a week? Does the class have a preference?
When will this class done?
At the end of January.
End of January?
Yes, because we started late. I understand Jasmine will be able to fill us in, I think, or Sarah will be able to fill us in. I'm sorry, Sarah. But it goes until the end of January, I believe.
And how is that while we are taking our break for other courses? So we don't have same break?
Well, that's something that I've requested. We started about 3 weeks late, I think, right?
I know, but we are thinking is maybe you listen the courses or the topic that you can merge together.
Okay, I'm not following. Can you repeat what you said?
Yeah, I know that we are late. We are late starting this course, and I think that if you can give us more extra work so that we can finish earlier.
Okay. The only problem with that is that it is not my decision to do that. It has to be done by the department. I can say, okay, next week we'll do 4 chapters. We'll do 4 chapters a week, so we finish sooner. But I have to say it isn't my decision to do that. The department has to agree to that, because remember, each course has to be a certain amount of hours, and simply giving you more work may not qualify as the normal length of time for a graduate class. So that answer to your question will have to wait a bit, because I can't answer that. But let me get back to the other point. Would you prefer that I give you an exam to take home, to work at home on the 20th to submit the 27th, or the 27th to submit the following week?
Can you see
The
again,
20th.
Professor? On the 20th or 22?
Well, I mean, I give it to you on the 20th and then ask you to submit it by the following week, which would be the 27th.
Yeah, I think so. so that we will have a Christmas break.
Okay, that's another thing. I don't below if the university sort of gives you any time off, but I'll give you again the full week to do it. So if you I give you the questions on the 20th and then ask you to bring it back on the 27th.
Yeah, because we are thinking
Yes.
is
Yes.
if we should be done this January so that we have a break before our next semester again will start. That's what we are thinking, but I
Yeah.
don't know if we can
Well, I
talk
don't
to
know.
the.
Yeah, I don't know what um, I don't know exactly when your other courses would begin. Let me try and get some clarification from the department on that. But I was told that this will continue to the end of January. Now, maybe they were also including some time off for Christmas break, but let me clarify that for us, and I'll hopefully have information for you next week on the 13th, and how they would prefer that we handle this. Okay.
Yes, because our course here will be the thesis, and you know if we are doing the thesis, we are full time on that course.
Well, when does your other courses end? Let me ask you when your other
December,
courses
at this end of
This-
December.
at the end of December 30th, more or less. Yes, I see. Okay, well, it's 31st. All right. Well, let me clarify that for you for next week. I'll ask them, when is the course officially end? Does that include a time off or a break? How many of you are working on, you say, thesis, things like that are quite important?
I think all of us.
Okay, so thesis is the final project for your MBA program. Is that what it is?
Yes.
I see. Okay, so actually after this term, you're mostly, all of the ones that we have here are finished with the program.
Yes, it's our
I
2
see.
years.
I see. Okay. Well, let me get some clarification of the future schedule, and I'll get back to you on the 13th, and we'll discuss that and reach a final conclusion.
Yes, so for the meantime, we will do what you see that you'll give us assignment for that and we'll submit it in the
Yes.
27th.
Yeah, well, for next week, I'm asking you to read 10 and 11 and take chapter 9, and you'll submit that by next week on the 12th. So we can discuss it on the 13th.
Chapter 9 next week.
Yeah, today was 9, and
Yes.
the questions would be for next Tuesday, so that on Wednesday we can discuss them. And once we discuss them, then they're closed for anybody who did not submit them.
Cool.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. So have a very pleasant afternoon and the rest of the weekend. I'll see you all next Wednesday on the 13th.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you
Thank
for
you,
being
Professor.
here. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.